All right, I'm not sure what happened there. No biggie. I showed off my body a little bit. You know, you like this. It's okay. What's up, y'all? You know, we're not shy over here. Not shy over here at all. I'm just surprised I wasn't sitting here. I wasn't actually sitting here like that. So I'm actually surprised that it went back like from when I first cut on my camera and I was sitting down getting everything together. But all good. It ain't a nightmare to me. Not a nightmare to me at all. You know. What's up, everyone? How's everyone doing? You know, see, these are small things. You know, the more you get to know me early, the better you get to know me throughout the entirety of the course. Not a problem. What's up, Shade? What's up, Sean from LA? What's up? Six hats, appreciate it. I'm actually about to get a whole sleeve done over on this side. Next time you see me though, shirtless, I'll look. You know, I'm down. A lot of you guys don't know that I'm down like 25 pounds since like August or so. I'm like down like 25 pounds. Just wait till the next time that happens, and then everyone's gonna be like, oh man, what a mistake. Too hot. It's too hot for y'all. What's up, everybody? Tonight is gonna be a fun night. First off, I don't know who joined in before all the fun, but can anyone call out the song that was playing during the start of everything, during the starting soon screen? Does anyone know the song that we were playing there? If anyone can call it out, that would be dope. And yeah, Permissions by Ro James. So if anyone doesn't know that song, go check it out. But what I'm gonna try to do is, most nights, I'm gonna do my best to pick a song that's very relatable to the topic at hand. And tonight's was Ro James, Permissions, and it was dope. Tonight we'll be learning all about identity and access management inside of AWS. Permissions are included in that. So, you know, spot on, right on the nose to the stuff that we're going to be learning tonight. What's up, Delaroos? What's up, Meow Mukes too? What's up, Boba Cat? What's up, Pavel? Orox? What was what? What was yeah, you caught me. It's okay, you know, call me slipping, but not a problem. What's up? Who else is on here? What's up, Sun Caven? How y'all doing? We're gonna make some cool that's going up on YouTube. First off, I'm gonna leave that in just for the fun of it. Appreciate the Devo 8, appreciate the 100 bits tonight. But everyone, you should have your slides ready from the Google Classroom. They should be in there. First off, I want to give you guys a lot of respect for a lot of people did the homework. A whole lot of people did the homework, or at least turned it in, actually went in and introduced themselves. But a lot of people, mark some of the assignments as done. We didn't do a whole lot of homework last week. You'll see today that there is more. Hold on, that there is more than last time. There's more assignments. There's not really any assignments this go around. There's more material to go over than last time. Take a look at it. Make sure you set your time aside to be able to kind of go through some of those things. And yeah, so we're gonna get the stuff pulled up, but as usual, we'll give people a few minutes to get in. How's everyone's weekend? For all the moms out there, happy belated Mother's Day. I hope you all enjoyed it. For anyone, I hope that everyone got to spend a little time appreciating their mothers, whether they're here or not. And again, like I said, I know this time of year is a tough time, but I hope everyone got some time to take some time and really appreciate all the dope things that mothers do. But we're gonna hop into Google Drive. We have a fair amount of slides tonight. I think the topics tonight are I think because I've been dealing with AWS for so long, in my mind, like a lot of these things are gonna go super easy. Like I remember going through the slides and making the slides, and I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna be able to breeze right through this stuff. But then as I started diving deeper into all these things, I realized that like there's a lot of little stuff that you pick up over time that you take for granted. And so I think this part is going to be interesting. So I actually really want to hear some feedback on specifically the information from tonight, and how either dense it is. Like, is it let me know at the end if you felt like it was a lot of information, a lot of new information, or if it was like, that was pretty easy to understand, and I think I got all that. I don't think it's going to. I think we're still going to be out of here in about 2 hours, hopefully, maybe a little less, if we can move through it quick. But I do want to, I'm interested to see how this information compares to some of the other information. We're going to go through a lot of, we're going to spend some time in the console tonight. We're also going to get hands-on for the first time with the AWS CLI. But yeah, we're just going to learn about the different ways to access AWS, how to control it. We're going to learn a little bit about security and our roles and responsibilities between you and AWS. So I'm going to be nice and calm and just sit back and relax, and make sure you got your water next to you. You know, we got to stay hydrated. I haven't got back on the sparkly stuff yet. You know, we don't have any LaCroix in here yet. I was actually talking to the Prime again a little bit, and he actually brought up an interesting point about SodaStream. So we may have some dueling customers in a second. Could you make the sub follow notifications a little quieter? Yeah, I'm pretty sure you shouldn't be able to hear them at all now. I'm pretty sure. Let me know next time someone follows. They should be mute today. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who can hear them. If that's not the case, I may have to just change my the settings on my mixer, which, gonna be honest, okay, wait, you should have heard it for like 2 seconds and then it should have gone away. So let me know if that happened. I see what happened. We're the last person that followed. Let me know if you're the next one. I was doing something for someone. Yeah, right when you said it. Yeah, I was doing we were doing some cool Slack, playing some Slack games. I needed my sound to come through, so I changed up my mixer, but it should be fixed now. All right, here we go. What time is it? All right, 7:08. How's our music? Let me make sure we're playing. Let's make sure we're playing the royalty-free lo-fi playlist. Why are we playing royalty-free? Normally I wouldn't care, but somehow, some way, thanks to you all, thanks to everyone who's watching on YouTube, the goal this year was to make a bunch of YouTube videos as well. That has not worked out as intended, but that's still the goal. The goal is to still make some more permanent content that's not necessarily courses on YouTube, more content about how to, navigate the tech industry, one-off things, just a different type of content there that's more permanent. And today we finally reached the limits to be, the threshold to be a YouTube partner, which is like 4,000 watch hours or something like that. So thank you for everyone who's been watching. So what that means now is, because I can make money on YouTube, I'm going to care a little bit more about these videos not being demonetized, at least for music reasons. If they do, not really a big deal. I'm not super pressed about it, but if you can do what you can, then do what you can. Any tips for a slower running Ubuntu on a VM on a Mac? To be honest with you, if you've already have it installed and it is a full desktop, I would drop it down into just the CLI. I forgot what user level that is, but check out some Linux user level stuff. I think you can, like, on boot up, you can drop it down to like user level 2 maybe, which is just command line only, as a server would be. Or I would just install the server version of Ubuntu or anything else. You can find it right on their website. I would install the server version. It is a lot lighter on your computer due to the lack of graphical user interface. So hopefully that works. Where can we see your resume? LinkedIn. LinkedIn. Yep, I think you can exclamation point LinkedIn, maybe. But if not, all like linkedin.in/mastermind.io, we'll find it. Yep, but you can see that stuff, and we can go over it later if you don't make it to there, jumping jacks. Just ask me later, and we can go through it. Twitch partner next. Yeah, so interestingly enough, thank you all again very much. I finally reached all the stuff to be Twitch partner. After this stream today, the only remaining thing was the amount of hours, just because I hadn't been streaming in the break, which the hours will be done today. We have the other pieces as well. Hopefully they accept it. If not, no big deal. We'll keep trying. It just feels good to hit those metrics. So it's pretty dope. Yes, we are going to do AWS CLI stuff today. That is absolutely a part of what we're doing. So that should be fun. That's where you might feel a little bit overwhelmed today. But it's okay. Like I said, it's all right. Also, you're 12. I don't know if you saw my tweet today, but you all are 12.5% done with this intro journey. I know that seems like a lot after 1 week, but you're 12.5% done. You're moving through it. I promise you, if you think about the stuff that you can say that you're familiar with right now, it's a lot. There's a lot more things you can talk about now than last week. Even if you don't know them super well, there's terms and there's things that you've gone over that you understand that you didn't know last week. So just keep moving, keep picking up the stuff. You'll make it. You're 12.5% there. You got to finish now. Just stick with it. That's all you got to do. Just stick with it. And now your partner wreck. Yeah, not a big deal. I just care more about the, I did the things that it said, so it feels good. Ubuntu for a video called Ubuntu 20.04. The Twitch one might be down because it's probably been 14 days. I know I have it saved here. I don't know if I ever put it on YouTube or not. I'll check if I didn't put that on there. I do have it locally. I can stick it up on YouTube. And I can kind of let you know. I'll check tonight when I'm rendering out this one. Okay, here we go. Identity, access, and responsibility. Whose job is it anyway? Shared responsibility model. So the first thing, we said we're going over IAM, but the very first thing that we want to go over tonight is something super important. This will be, if you're going to take the exam, the Certified Cloud Practitioner, questions about the shared responsibility model will absolutely be on the exam. So this part is pretty important. It's not an incredibly tough concept, but it does get a little tough to remember which pieces are which if you haven't been doing, if you're not super familiar with the infrastructure and architecture, how that stuff works already. So it can be a little bit weird. So we're gonna go over some of that, ask as many questions, write down as many questions as you have, and make sure you get those questions answered, because this is pretty important. But we're in this together, partner. You and AWS, we are partners in this thing called the cloud. Yes, AWS does in fact provide you with cloud services, but you also have some responsibility here. So let's talk about that. Security and compliance are extremely important. This is what the world runs off of right now. It's the reason why you don't trust Facebook. It's the reason why all these companies are getting hacked and all these data breaches and stuff. It's going to continue to happen. And to be 100% honest with you, it's no company is ever going to be completely impervious to these things. But you can do a lot of things to ensure that you have your ducks in a row, so that you don't so you aren't able to, you're not going to succumb to things like this. You're not going to get any ransomware like Baltimore City did. But yeah, security and compliance are extremely important, and it is up to both you and AWS to ensure that these standards are upheld. So this is the basic overview of what the shared security model is. It's really outlining the steps that exist between you and Amazon, security wise, what you're responsible for, what they're responsible for. Okay, so what is AWS responsible for? AWS is the main guard, the main gatekeeper. So AWS is responsible for security of the cloud. Very important there. And again, something we may have to contextualize, but I want you to think of the facilities. So what are we talking about when we say facilities? Think about, the facilities, software, hardware, and networks that make up the global infrastructure. So last time we talked about the global infrastructure of Amazon. That is the availability zones, the regions, all that stuff, all the things that make up those data centers, those giant warehouses of servers, that are networked together. They have ample cooling and stuff. So think facilities, so think security to those actual facilities. Who has access to be able to get inside of those things? Amazon is in charge of that. You don't have to worry about keeping people away from your physical hardware, the things that you have things running on. You don't have to worry about keeping people away from those. Amazon will take care of that for you. Also mostly think about those data centers. Software. So remember I said that the cloud is really just a software layer, an API layer over top of some infrastructure. So the software that enables that is what they're responsible for. So these are things that you don't have access to. All the software that runs their backend services and things like that, it is up to them to keep that up to date, keep that secure, all the security patches in place, and make sure everything is good there. Same thing for hardware. So this is kind of along the lines of facilities, but making sure one, hardware is working, as there are people in Amazon's warehouses right now, data centers right now, constantly swapping out hard drives, swapping out computer parts, replacing servers on the rack, because hardware fails. So AWS is responsible for keeping those things, that hardware secure, both secure and kind of up to date and up to speed, and the networks that make up the global infrastructure. So this is the big one. Especially this part could be confusing because you are responsible for a lot of networking as well, but the networks that make up the global infrastructure. So Amazon does what they can. They do a lot to make sure their network is mostly secure. That it's following the latest standards for security. And these are all things that they have to take care of. So think of the things that you don't have access to, that support what you do on the cloud. So they're keeping the cloud secure. The cloud itself is what they're keeping secure. So security of the cloud is what they're responsible for. Any questions before we go into what you're responsible for? And we're gonna dive. There's a diagram a little bit later that'll dive deeper into it. This is not an exhaustive list. There is an exhaustive list of things that is in your Google Classroom, but we're going to see that chart in a second. Any questions on this first? Want to build a customer website myself? Sean, keep those. I definitely want to. Hopefully, we'll have some time at the end to kind of answer some questions like that. Has there ever been a major AWS breach? It depends on what you call major, but sure, there are tons of. I don't know necessarily there's been a breach that that was the fault of AWS, like a data breach that was the fault of AWS. There have been plenty of data breaches that were caused by actions of companies who were operating on top of AWS, but not that I know of. But we can look that up a little bit later. Okay, so let's check out what you're responsible for. So AWS is responsible for one thing. So AWS is responsible for security of the cloud, but you are responsible for the security in the cloud. So they're providing you the security for the underlying, hardware, resources, facilities, and there is software stuff in there as well. There's a little bit overlap, a lot closer to you than just the hardware, but you are responsible for security inside of the cloud. So think like your operating system, think like Windows updates or Linux updates and security patches. You are responsible for those things. AWS is not responsible for those things. They don't, once you provision the servers and services from them, it's in your hands. It's for you to use, and so AWS doesn't have control over these things. They can access these things if you allow them to, but they don't access things. So it's up to you to make sure your operating systems are secure, make sure your patches and things are in place, and then your applications. So the applications and software that you have running within the cloud. So let's say you have a server and you're keeping the Ubuntu server up to date, but maybe you're running Nginx as a web server or Apache, but you're not keeping that up to date. So you need to make sure you're keeping that up to date as well. You probably are if you're doing OS updates, but the software, the packages, and the applications that are running on your system, it is your responsibility. They are not going to be securing your applications. You must take the steps to make sure those things are secure, and we'll talk about. There's more information about how to make those things secure. There's a lot of different paradigms for security. If you're interested in security, let me know. I'm interested to know how many people are interested in security, like truly just security, because there's a lot of cloud security practices and principles which are interesting, and it's very interesting working with security folks right now who do not understand the paradigm of the cloud, and a lot of the practices don't really. The common industry practices don't really stand up. They don't really have the same effectiveness because things work completely different. It's very. We had a security officer get upset with us because they were like, "Hey, we need an IP address to your EC2 instance," and we said, at first we were like, "Hey, we don't have any EC2 instances." They're like, "Well, how do you run an application?" We were like, "I mean, The application that you care about is serverless. Like there's no server. I can't give you an IP address. Then for another application where we did have IP addresses, we were like, hey, we can't give you an IP address because the way that this thing auto scales, instances don't stay around for very long. Like we're talking about, they rotate out, within a day. So if we give this to you today, it's going to be outdated tomorrow. And like they were like, no, like you need to give us something. It's like, okay, well, I mean, we'll give you something. It ain't gonna work, but we'll give you some stuff. But it's very interesting. But so you need to care about the applications, the operating systems, the software, the access. So the access to your stuff, like Amazon is not in control to who accesses your things. Oops. You are in control of that, and that's what we're going to be learning about tonight. How you control that access to your resources, to your account. And then the network. So you have access to controlling the networks that exist inside of Amazon and that touch your resources. You have a substantial amount of control actually over networks, mostly due to the paradigm of something called a virtual private cloud. We will learn all about virtual private clouds, but you do have a lot of control over networking, and you can use, like, networking is your first huge line of defense to a lot of these security problems. So making sure your underlying network is great is both your responsibility and a good thing to do. Okay, all right, we got some security people. Okay, perfect. Then just knowing that, I'll especially tonight, I'll try to speak a little bit more about some of the security practices. But tonight, this stuff is really important for you to know, for anyone in security. This stuff is like super important. But it's also super important for everyone to know, like, there are roles that are purely to manage identity and access across AWS resources and accounts. So, there aren't a ton that are just for that, but there are roles just doing that. This is very, 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 very important. Super duper important. All right, here is the infographic I was talking to you about how it shows you a little deeper about what the differences are between your responsibility versus AWS's responsibility. So they put it right here. Yours is for things in the cloud. AWS's is down here for things of the cloud. And so we're talking about customer data. So your data is your responsibility. Amazon, again, they're not going to know how to protect your data properly. They have no idea how your applications and things work. So it's your responsibility. But it kind of starts from the bottom and works its way up. So starting at the bottom with like networking, traffic, protection and encryption, and encrypting your data, making sure that if it's grabbed, it can be read all across the board here. And then your operating system and your networks and your firewall configurations. So servers and things have firewalls. So these are application firewalls that you can configure. We'll learn about those. I think we'll learn about those next time. What's next time? Let me see. Yes, starting on Wednesday, we'll be learning about kind of that firewall configuration. Amazon has their own paradigms for this, but there's also things you can do on the server itself for this as well. But then your platforms, your applications, and again, they put it right up here, this identity and access management. Everything tonight is so important because this is your job, and this is the way that you can control a fair amount of this access. And then again, customer data on top. And then Amazon's is all the stuff down here. So you should be familiar with the AWS global infrastructure, your regions, your availability zones, and then that bonus that we learned, which is the edge locations. In quick recap, edge locations, we were specifically talking about a service called CloudFront, which is a content delivery network. And those are the locations, the geographic locations around the world that caches data for Amazon. So they make sure these things are secure, as well as the software that powers these things. So the software that powers their compute services and their storage services, their database services, and their networking, they make sure that's up to date. So overall, the thing that you want to know about them, that you want to know about the shared security model, is that you and Amazon are partners in making sure that security and compliance concerns are upheld. And then spend some time learning about those differences. Think AWS for things, they're responsible for security of the cloud. The customer is responsible for security in the cloud. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about that? We are done with that section. We're done with the shared security model. Do we think we have a good handle on that? Ask whatever questions you have about that so far. Again, fairly simple paradigm of you both have responsibility, but remembering what things you have responsibility for versus what AWS has responsibility for can be tough sometimes. And again, especially if you're not super understanding of where networking stops, what is networking, what is a firewall, things like that. It does get a little difficult to kind of understand where those things lie. Once you do kind of understand those things, it's a pretty easy distinction to make in your mind. But again, this is a good time to, if you're not familiar with these things, go check, just write down firewall. You don't need to write down firewall configuration. Just say, hey, let me just understand what a firewall is. And I think you'll see that a firewall is something that's pretty simple. You don't need to know how to use one, even though you'll learn how to use one. And so maybe it'll make more sense next week. Knowing about what encryption is, not a big deal. You don't need to know about what encryption is. But knowing, reading through this and understanding that these are things that you are responsible for is good to know. Pot liquor. Migrations to the cloud are always very interesting. There are a few different types of migrations to the cloud. We're gonna learn about those as well. There's something called a lift and shift, which is basically some people call them I'm pretty sure people call them a pump and dump as well, but it's where you basically take all the stuff as is and move it to the cloud. You have a server over here that's on premises, and you just take all the stuff and copy it over to the server that's in the cloud. Then you're not receiving the benefits of the cloud. You're just kind of quickly moving it over. But then there's also cloud migrations to where you are making your application a little more cloud native, and utilizing cloud services and adjusting your application and your architecture in a way that is more beneficial. It will benefit more by the cloud. That is actually what we're doing in the pipelines course. Most of what we're doing in the pipelines course will be that we're actually doing a whole re-architecture of some applications that have been set up. So if you're interested in learning a little more about that, we will be, but we'll also learn about those paradigms, those migration paradigms in this course as well. All right, let's move on to the prime time, most important thing, which is IAM. And I'm gonna go to the next song only because one day I'm gonna figure out why it's so hard for me to, as soon as a song with words come on, I can't think. But I all day I'm listening to songs with words in it, and I can do my work just fine. But I think while I'm speaking, it really messes me up a lot. So IAM, the big one. And I don't want to say that IAM is a beast because at face value, IAM is pretty simple. The concept of IAM is pretty simple, but IAM does in fact have a number of paradigms and concepts, and it has a number of interesting ways that you can use it, depending on your organization, depending on there's kind of no completely correct way to kind of utilize it. There are best practices, which I've given you as a part of your resources for homework, but there's no there's simple things to do, but as you work with organizations that grow pretty big, the way that you handle account management and access to your infrastructure can be tough. And so we're gonna get started with this today. So we are gonna get into the console today, and we are gonna get into the CLI today. So identity and access management. We'll take this part slow. AWS IAM, it's almost always referred to as IAM, so I'll usually refer to it as that, but you do need to know that it is identity and access management. So this is going to be discussing authentication and authorization, and so we'll talk about the differences between those two words. A lot of people don't know the differences between those two, but we'll talk about that. But AWS IAM allows who, what, and how services are accessed and and can interact. I'll fix the wording here. It's not really interacted with either, but and can interact, access and can interact within your AWS account. So the who, the what, and the how. So this determines who, like people, or what, which is other services or systems. It determines which one of those things can access your AWS account and which specific resources, and how they can access them, whether they can do everything to them, whether they can just, read them, whether they can just write to them, whether they can just get information. So all those things, it's very granular, very, very granular, but it controls who, what, and how services are accessed and can interact within your AWS account. So this is not only for people from the outside, this is also from inter AWS services, as well as AWS services from other accounts, all pretty important. So the first of which is the biggest, well, not the biggest, but very important. It's the first thing we're going to set up today. This is what you saw when we set up an AWS account and you logged in as the root user. It gave you the option to log in as the root user or the IAM user, so the identity and access management user. And we logged in with root because we didn't have this set up yet. I wanted you to understand what it was that you were setting up before I showed you how to do it. So users are a name and credentials used to provide a user with access to AWS accounts and resources in the console and or programmatically. So I want you to know that a user is both a name and credentials. It's both of those things. And they're used to provide access via the console, so the graphical user interface that we're used to looking at, or programmatically. And so what were the things that fell into the programmatic access? Last time that we talked about was the AWS CLI, so the command line interface, and the AWS SDK, which are software development kits, software development kits. Check out, again, there's a resource all about software development kits inside of Google Classroom, specifically because we will not be doing anything with with any SDKs, but we will be doing things with both the console and the CLI. The SDKs are, again, they're more for developers, so it's not super important that we learn it here. It will not be on the exam, like anything specific about SDK, but it might be important that you know that is a way to interact with AWS. Again, SDKs are software development kits, and they give you tools, easy tools to be able to interact with a piece of software, to build software. Yeah, but check out the video. Check out that video in the classroom. Okay. IAM users part 2. Users can authenticate with AWS in 3 ways. Notice I put the word authenticate here. This part is interesting because they can authorize as well. So 1, authentication versus authorization. Authentication, think about if you're allowed to access this. Think about authentication is, hey, I have confirmed that you are allowed to access this. Authorization is, I have checked and you are allowed to do this. So you get in. So someone who may be able to log into this account may not be authorized to perform any actions inside of that account. So again, think about authentication being that access, but authorization being your ability to actually perform tasks. Not super important for the exam, but more important for your career in tech, period. Authentication versus authorization is often a confusing topic, but you can authenticate and authorize, but authenticate specifically here with AWS in 3 different ways, but here are only 2 of them. And I'm not going to tell you the third one yet because you haven't learned about the thing that's necessary to do it, which you will in a few. But 1, so over here on the right, the console, the thing that we've already logged into, you can get in with a username and password, along with MFA, so that multi-factor authentication. A lot of acronyms going all the time, but yes, MFA, multi-factor authentication. That is the thing that you've been using when you try to log into GitHub or Facebook and they say, hey, do you want us to send you a text? That is your second factor. So your password is the first factor, so you have your username, Your password is your first factor for authentication, and then it says, hey, we're going to go ahead and need for security reasons, we're going to need a second factor for you to authenticate with. And it's usually a phone or something. Usually people nowadays are using this 6-digit code, and so AWS does allow you to do that. AWS also allows you to use something called they do allow for YubiKeys. I think YubiKeys are pretty cool, and actually for you security people, I would actually recommend picking these up. So I do have a YubiKey. My only problem is I have this nano one, and I work off of multiple computers, so that's a problem. But YubiKey makes it so that you don't have to plug in that it's really secure because it's a physical access token. But you don't have to plug in that thing every time. You literally you set it up inside Amazon, you put in your username and password, and then when it asks for your second factor, you just plug it into the computer, or you have it plugged in already, and you just tap the little button here or tap the side of it, and it goes ahead, and that's the second factor. So it's super secure as long as you don't lose it. But yeah, that's all two-factor authentication is two forms of verification. It's like when you go to start a new job and they make you bring like your license plus your social security card, same thing. Can YubiKey work on remote sessions? Example from a jump server. That's a great question. So in terms of Amazon, that's an interesting question because you do not use those two-factor auths. Authentication devices, or like the method for authenticating to AWS's accounts is not the same way that you authenticate to something like a jump server. Jump servers only allow you to authenticate via SSH keys, so that won't really work. That won't really work there. Wow, they're expensive. What? No, I mean, they're expensive, like, but over 1K, they should be like $50, $40-50. I don't know about 1,000. I don't pay $1,000 for a YubiKey. You have a phone, it's not that serious. But they're nice though. I will say, I have one on my work computer, and it makes it really nice. Like I never have to worry about where my phone is or if it's charged. Like just log in, hit the button. It's pretty nice. Yeah, I was gonna say you get them on Amazon for pretty cheap. Yeah, but I do recommend MFA. A lot of organizations require MFA. This is something that you can do inside of IAM, is require MFA, but you can also like, it's so granular. So like right now, our method and a lot of people's methods is, yeah, we'll set you up an account so that you can start to get your things set up, get your passwords and keys set up. But while you are authenticated, so without MFA, you can be, I will allow you to authenticate with our account. So you can log into the account, but you aren't authorized to do anything until you add that MFA. So it's always interesting. You can get in there, you can see your stuff, but until you set up that MFA, you are actually not authorized to do any actions. So it's a pretty nice thing that you can do there. And so this is really one way of authentication. And the other way of authenticating are something called access keys. So this is for, this is programmatically. So when we're talking about the AWS CLI, or we're talking about AWS SDKs, access keys are how you are going to define, what you're doing, and how you're doing it. So, yeah, those are two things there. I'm going to show you access keys. There are two pieces of that. There's a secret access key. There's an access key and a secret access key. I never remember the two names of them. There are two keys that go along with it. One is very long and one is kind of long. And so you use those. We will set those up tonight. You'll see what those look like. I'll do my best not to show you those, not to show you mine, but I'll show you how to set them up. So that you can access AWS programmatically and have a little bit of fun. I really think programmatic access of AWS is what makes it real fun. So yeah. All right. Any questions about users first? Take it slow. Take it slow. Why is it more secure than like a text code to your phone? So it's a little more secure than a text code to your phone due to the physical non-connected nature of the hardware device. So it can't be spoofed really, because again, it's not something that's connected to the internet. People can't intercept data transmissions in between and things like that. You can lose your phone. So you can lose the YubiKey as well. But yeah, I don't know. It's a that non-connected hardware token is pretty nice for a lot of people. It's also convenient. It's also really it can be really convenient, but not necessarily much better. It saves you time as well. I can't tell you how much time it takes me to to pull out my phone, find the app, and get that stuff in there. Okay, that's users. So what is a group? So it's important to think about users. Think about users as people. While a user can be set up for a non-person, I would think about them as people. Most of the time they're going to be people, and we'll learn why in a little bit. There's another paradigm for machines. Sometimes you got to set them up as users, but there's a better paradigm for most of the time for other machines and things. But these things have to be managed. So you have to, if so by default, and I think I put it in a later slide, but by default, no, actually we'll wait on that. But users, you got to manage all these users individually. They all have different permissions. They all can have different permissions. They can all have different everything. Yeah, so that's a user, but that's where groups come in. So a lot of the times you're not going to be working at a company with one or two people, especially when they're using AWS. There's probably going to be multiple people who need access to AWS, who need to access certain things inside of AWS, and it can get really annoying to manage every single user in here. And so if anyone's familiar with like LDAP or something, this is not the same, but groups are a paradigm. It's a collection of users, and it makes management much easier. What does that mean? Maybe I want anyone who's a developer in my company to have certain access to certain things, but every time a new developer joins, what if I hire 20 developers this week? No one should have to go in and set up each of those developers and set up permissions for them to do certain things, to access this, but to not access that. You don't want to do that 20 times. Groups allow you to say, hey, here's a collection of people. I can add people to this group, and I can manage, as long as they're part of this group, I can manage all of their access via this group rather than their individual user. So this is much more of a common paradigm than doing individual user management. Is to place them inside of groups and manage their access to things through that group rather than the individual user. So that's all they're for. You've probably seen this a number of times. If you're, this is just like a Linux group. If anyone's done stuff with Linux, pretty simple concept, much easier to do it together. This is where Active Directory integration comes in. Great question. Yes. So yes and no. There's some interesting things you can do with Active Directory, both with IAM and they have some Active Directory services underneath. But yes, this is where a lot of people do control some access through Active Directory. I don't necessarily think the integration is amazing, at least what I've seen, but I haven't done a lot of Active Directory with IAM. But yes, this is. But it does work similarly to a standalone AD. It does. Can you IAM for role-based access control? So it depends. I think it depends on what. Yes. IAM does inherently have RBAC. For anyone who doesn't know what RBAC is, it's role-based access control. So it's access to things based on a role rather than anything else. And so authentication, authorization is done through that role. Yes, and we're about to talk about that. Would this be easier than writing a running PowerShell script to assign permissions? This will be much easier. There are a number of paradigms for automating this and managing this. By hand, it can be pretty gross, but there are a number of ways, using Terraform or Amazon CDK or CloudFormation, which I don't recommend, but we will have to talk about it. But you can also use scripts to do these things as well. But I would highly recommend something that is a little more friendly, like even a configuration management tool like Chef or Puppet or Ansible, to do this as well. More specifically Ansible, they all work for it though. Who is in charge of IAM? Is it the same as the systems admin? That's a great question. It's different everywhere you go, but usually it is whoever is the sysadmin or DevOps or SRE system engineer. It's usually that person, or like I said, there are companies that are large enough to where they have people to manage this, purely to manage this, because this is a big thing and it can get really tough to work with and tough to handle. But yeah, it's usually like a sysadmin. Sometimes for certain pieces of it, like the executive level things, maybe there's someone on that end who does these things, but usually it's like the systems administrator. Seeing as all this work is on the computer company AWS, then we'll never really use our personal accounts. Yes, correct. Kinda. Work with the company. Yes, you won't really be using your personal accounts like at work. Right. But yeah, there we go. I like that. Putting the notes there, people can copy and paste. Role-based access control. The organizations usually structure their AWS logins accounts by departments. It's all over the board. So, I think people generally designate it, the structure based on the role and responsibility of the applications that exist inside of it. So if we don't want a bunch of different, generally people don't want a bunch of different departments working on completely different things that are inside of AWS working out of the same account, because then it's really hard to manage access. It's really difficult to make sure people are stepping on each other's toes, networking and things like that. So generally you break it up by functionality of applications rather than work department. But I mean, again, it's kind of it's kind of up to you. It's really an art form, and that's why people pay so much. There's a reason why architecture in particular, and solutions architect professional exam is the hardest, because that it's more of an art. It's taking that information and figuring out what's best. Again, maybe that organization is structured to where that makes sense. I can see a million places where that would make sense, but a lot of times, again, it's broken up by the functionality of the applications that are going to be running inside of it. I still don't understand the difference between SRE and DevOps engineer. Gotcha. I forgot this is not the DevOps course. We learned a little bit about this with pipelines on Saturday, but the difference, they are very similar. And honestly, in most places, for all intents and purposes, what's up, Ace Attack? Welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for the follow. For all intents and purposes, what's up, One Pocket Pimp? They are, a lot of places they're the same. Ideally, they're different. In reality, for what they were written to be, what they were destined to be, they're different. But most places use the terms kind of interoperably. But an SRE is generally the focus, the goals are different. A DevOps engineer, the goal is really to help engineers, developers move code, create new code, and move it through the pipeline as fast as possible. It's developing methodologies and processes and pipelines to move code as fast as the developers need to. Whereas the goal of SRE, site reliability engineering, the goal of that is to really cater to the infrastructure and reliability of that infrastructure and applications, but using software to solve your problems. And so an SRE may implement DevOps methodologies to get to that state. So again, neither one of them is really a true, they're both methodologies and a way of operation. And so SRE may implement DevOps to be able to achieve their end goal. And DevOps may be responsible, DevOps engineers may be responsible for creating pipelines which do incorporate some of those SRE concepts as well. So it can be pretty tough to understand the difference, but again, the difference between them is their end goal. Evacuate is Azure equivalent. I don't know what evacuate is. I don't know what that is. You can use AWS Cognito to create ID pools and assign resource control that way. So Keylime TV. Keylime is bringing up one of Amazon's 175 plus services, but AWS Cognito is not used to assign resource controls in Amazon. It is instead used to assign those controls for applications created in Amazon. So it's not to Amazon resources, but it is used as a an identity federator for your application. So for like Facebook, if you were an application, a social media network, and you needed people to be able to log in and manage what they had access to within your application, that's what you would use. That's what you would use Cognito for. Okay. So again, IAM users, just the people, username and password, or an MFA or keys as well. You can manage their access to AWS resources. Groups, just a collection of those users, really just to make management easier. But then what do we have? After that, we have roles. So these are pretty important, IAM roles. So a role is a bit different, and this is exactly what we're talking about with role-based access control. An IAM role is an IAM identity or entity, is an IAM entity that defines a set of permissions. That's really important. I'm gonna bold that. Let's bold that right now so you have that. It's important to know that it's a set of permissions. It could be one permission, but I want you to understand that the concept is a set of permissions, so multiple permissions for making AWS service requests. IAM roles are not associated with a user, so you cannot, they're not associated with a specific user or group. Instead, trusted entities assume a role, such as IAM users, applications, or AWS services, such as EC2. So you do not give a role to a user or a group. Instead, that user or group is allowed to assume a role. It's allowed to take on a role to be able to do something. So this is kind of like groups. It's kind of like groups a little bit. What's a little more specific about this is only IAM users can be a part of a group. Roles can encompass not just users or groups. Not only can users or groups assume these roles, but AWS entities like servers, like different resources, can also assume these roles. So this is what you use to manage access from those AWS resources that we talked about, those compute resources, storage resources, things like that. You assign them roles, you allow them to assume these roles, and that is how you control their permissions. This can be a very difficult concept once you kind of get into it. And the granularity of what you have to allow, deny, like by default, everything is kind of, there are no permissions like set up by default. And you got to define all those things. So we've got users and groups. So think about those as the people. Groups are just a way for you to easily manage the access of a collection of people. But roles are things that you don't necessarily assign to any of these users and groups. They're something that these users and groups can assume. They can assume this role. But this is also, roles are mainly for systems inside of AWS, resources inside of AWS to interact with other things in there as well. Mr. Dean Wolf, thank you so much for the host. 100%. Also good to see you. So that's what a role is. Any question about roles? Any question about those three things? There's still more to these sections. But users, groups, and roles. And we're gonna get hands-on to kind of cement this stuff. I know sometimes it's hard to look at the slides. But I want to get through the slides so we can get hands-on, and you'll have many more questions. Once you see it in action, we're going to create users, we're going to create groups, we're going to create roles, we're going to get access to the CLI, all that stuff. So you can kind of think about roles are hardware. Roles aren't hardware necessarily, but it is the thing that does allow you to control access between AWS resources, so that the hardware and the software, those different services, like yeah, it allows you to be able to control that, because those things cannot be controlled through users or groups, only through roles. Assume a role, you mean that as in someone saying, hey, I got dibs on X, etc. Great question, Jumpin' Jack. So assuming a role is a form of authorization. So assuming a role says, I'm a user, Aaron is a user, and maybe there's a role that says there's a role that says, hey, I can control, I'm allowed to get on this computer and use Google Chrome. And so by default, my user, Aaron's user, does not have access to do that. So I may try to go in here and I might try to say, hey, let me get on Google Chrome, and it won't let me. Access denied, can't get on Google Chrome. But I'm gonna say, hey, in here, it looks like I'm allowed to assume this role. So I'm gonna say, hey, hey computer, I am Aaron, but right now, I want you to look at me as if I am the prince of the computer now, because that is a role that I'm allowed to assume is set up as a part of my user. I'm allowed to assume the prince of the computer. And so to you, as far as you can tell, the computer actually sees me as the prince. I say, hey, I want to be prince. And AWS says, are you allowed to do that? Yep, you're allowed to do that. And now when I make the request to, get on to Google Chrome, it says, cool, the prince wants to get on, and it's going to let me on, because again, I took on a role that wasn't myself. I'm acting, I'm allowed to, morph into a different level of accessibility, to be 100% honest. Our groups are mainly used for organizational purposes, but roles let you actually give permissions to use services. No, groups and roles both allow you to manage permissions, but groups are simply for users, and roles again are a little more granular, and also having to assume a role is a little bit more in depth than just giving someone access. So there's some caveats between which to choose. You might say, why wouldn't I always just, if roles can do everything, why wouldn't I just manage everything through roles? There's some overhead to that. There's some steps to that are harder than doing anything else. Yes, Mr. Demon Wolf, I will do that. I'll definitely get into Discord after this, but I'm doing good. I hope you're doing good as well. So this is the authorization component of the lecture. Yes. The user, the IAM user, will really be the only form of authentication. Everything else underneath this, the roles, all the permissions and access, that will all be the authorization. So that's good. Good question. Can roles be used to give someone access to certain stuff? Let's say I'm not good with the S3 API. Can give a developer access to it. Yes, you can allow a developer to assume a role, to be able to gain access to the S3 API, and only the S3 API if you want. But you can also just give that person a user who's allowed to do that as well. What's also another thing that's important about IAM roles is they're generally specifically for IAM users they can be used for IAM users of other accounts. So let's say you do have two accounts. Maybe you have you wouldn't have this. You would not have this. Maybe you have your front-end engineers in one account and your back-end engineers in another. Doesn't make any sense. But let's say we wanted to get the people from one access to the other one for a certain reason. Roles are also used to be able to allow a user from another account to have access, almost specifically to have access to this current account. Yeah. So that's pretty important. Knowing that roles are used to give users in another account access to your resources is super duper important. The groups get assumed roles. If you are part of a group, it can allow you to assume a role. So groups don't necessarily get it, but someone who's a part of a group can be allowed to assume a role. Roles are super important when you need to allow applications access different things in your AWS environment. 100%. They're mostly used for application access and getting the different pieces to work. Usually people use the functionality of users and groups for users and groups, When we get to the end of this, I'll explain to you how we have a very interesting setup where I am that I really like. But I'll let you know about that because we have a team that manages access to many different accounts. So I'll talk to you about that in a little bit. It gets really tough to manage multiple accounts sometimes. Are roles like the admin user on the computer? No. No, they don't. Like, by default, roles have no access to anything. Roles have only access to what you give them. They could be, maybe you can make a role that is an administrator. But yes, so like it I guess like it could be like an admin. You could make an admin role that has access to everything, but by default, a role doesn't do anything. It only does what you allow it. So a lot of you all are great with Discord, so it's just like those roles in Discord, which I have not figured out yet. I did give people, there are 3 or 4 people who have mod in Discord right now, so I hope you figured it out. I didn't know if it was going to send you a message or not, but check that out. Okay, IAM permissions. This is really the most important, and maybe I should have let off with this, maybe. But the permissions let you specify access to AWS resources. So by default, resources have no permissions. And so this is what's important. These are the things that tell a role or a user or group what it can access. And so you take these permissions and policies, and actually let's go back to here. This says defines a set of permissions. And this is the permissions they're talking about. We're gonna see what those look like. These permissions are interesting. One, they are written in JSON. They can get tough to implement. They're actually very overwhelming when you're very first hopping into this stuff, because again, they're not, it's not like, hey, click this button here and click this button here. For major roles it is, but when you need to add granular access, again, you actually have to modify. Well, they have a little GUI wizard that's not very good, but it's written in JSON, which is JavaScript object notation, I believe is what JSON stands for. It is a way for you to specify keys and values. We'll take a look at some JSON, but you can use that to specify some things. And what you do is you set up like what or who has access to what service. So maybe I have access to S3, and maybe, but I also, it's granular to what I have access to do in S3. Can I list objects? Can I get objects? Or can I download objects? Can I upload objects? I'm allowed to put things up there. Maybe I'm allowed to put small objects, but I'm not allowed to do something called a multi-part upload, where I'm uploading larger files. So maybe I don't have access to do that. And so you're gonna specify who, you're gonna specify exactly what they have access to, and in what methods they can interact with that resource. And we're going to see that in a second. It's pretty interesting how you can do that. I prefer YAML. YAML is the human format of JSON. YAML is better, but machines are designed, most machines can't take in YAML. They take in JSON, which, you know, YAML is just a superset of JSON, and, you know, JSON's for the machines. Yeah, that's what you can do. You can't do YAML for these. So let me clear that up a little bit. In the way that IAM takes it is in JSON. If you are using a tool to manage this, again, like CloudFormation, like Terraform, yes, you write it in YAML and it will change the things accordingly. But by default, yes, it go JSON waterfall. I like that. See, that's clever. I like that. But yeah, YAML is better. Same set of roles, but you can't put the admin accounts into a group and attach that set of roles to the group. Yes. I believe the roles are defined by the system administrator, so it depends upon the system administrator how he wants to structure the roles. Yeah, generally the sysadmin or cloud engineer, whoever is person responsible for the infrastructure, is usually the person who defines those roles with the help of the business. You know, like the business will determine those things as well, and usually you have to set them up. But it's important to know that by default, resources have no permissions. This does not necessarily mean they can access nothing. But for the most part, they can't, for the most part. All right, so what's a policy? Those are permissions. What's a policy? A policy is an entity that, when attached to an identity or resource, it defines the permissions. So a policy is a statement of those permissions. And we'll look at IAM policies. You can, for right now, you can think about policies and permissions hand in hand. A policy, again, is just this JSON, is this statement of the permissions that this thing has access to. What can it do? What can it not do? Because you can explicitly allow things. You can also explicitly deny things as well. But yes, a policy is just that. It's the set of permissions that something has, and you attach it to these resources. You can attach these policies to a role. You can attach these policies to a user or a group as well. All right, I think this is the last slide. Yes, it is. So programmatic access, very important. Remember when we installed the AWS CLI, if you did, great. If you didn't, it's okay. It's not essential for this exam, or like it's not essential that you know how to use the AWS CLI. I want you to understand what it is, but I want to show you a lot about the AWS CLI throughout this course. I think it's very valuable, and especially for people moving on to the intermediate and advanced level of this course. I think it's going to be very beneficial to do this. I also think participating in this way and using the CLI will help get you some some context. It'll start to contextualize some of the things that we're doing, and you'll kind of see why the cloud is cool. It can be overwhelming. We have not done we didn't do any Linux here, so it's already going to be a little it's also going to, you're already at a big disadvantage. You know what, we're going to add that as a what we're going to do is we are going to add the Linux course. We did a Linux course, a very small Linux course in the Decoded bootcamp. And we're going to add this homework, not necessarily to do it, but to add it as a resource for you to check out some Linux if you need it, especially if tonight starts to confuse you once we get into the programmatic access of things. So classwork, create material, YouTube video. I like the speed in which you can do stuff with these things. Linux resources if you need them. There we go. No due date. I'll put it underneath today just in case, and we'll post it. Check it out if you need it. But you can't see here, there are more than last week, and there will be more as time goes on. All right, but yeah, we got the AWS CLI installed last time. We're gonna learn how to set it up and use it. So perfect timing. It is 8:08. We will have plenty of time to dig in. The first thing that we're gonna do, we led off today talking about some security aspects of things. One of the first things that we're gonna do is we're gonna get in and we are going to go through a security checklist that Amazon has. Make sure our account is first set up with that. It's very important. We'll do that. We'll create our IAM user so that we're not logging in with our root user anymore. And then we'll start to see what those permissions look like, what we have access to set up, what a policy looks like. And we'll start to set some of that stuff up as well. We'll create a user. We'll get that once we get that user set up and everything is all good. I'll show you how quick it takes for those policies and things to take effect. And then we will grab our credentials. We can show you how to set up MFA, show you how to get your keys installed on the AWS CLI, and we're going to get in and maybe we'll create some users or find out some information and do some cool things from the CLI as kind of a bonus. Not necessarily you need to be a pro at that. Like, we're going to go through, just watch what we're doing, understand how just to understand how we can interact. And we'll also talk about SDKs a little bit, but we're not going to do anything with an SDK. So get ready to hop back into your AWS account. So take a little break. I'm gonna close all these. I'll leave this here in case we need to get back into the slides for any reasons. But any questions so far about what IAM is? It's okay I fully expect you to have some confusion on, again, what you can do with the role, how it differs from some of the other things. I want you to have right now. I hope all that's just brewing around in your head. I hope you're trying to, really wrap your head around the users versus the groups versus the roles versus the the policies and permissions and kind of how those things might fit together. I highly recommend everyone heeds Bobet Cat. The advice there: avoid GUIs. I won't say avoid them, but love and live in the terminal. It's a great place to be. Once you're comfortable with it, you can do so much. You can do so much faster, actually. And there's a number of situations in which you will not have access to a GUI. Not so much for the AWS console. That pretty much is gonna be up, but yeah, I would highly advise if you're going past this to at least get really familiar with the terminal and what we're gonna be doing there. Do you recommend going through the AWS docs for IAMs or having additional resources that would be good? Yes, so I did share in the classroom a big thing about AWS IAM security best practices that dives a lot into Amazon's documentation for IAM. I would actually recommend hitting up Amazon's documentation for every service after we go over them. I think seeing how the things work first and then reading the documentation might help a lot. There's gonna be a lot of little tidbits that you might pick up out of there, but the documentation can be pretty verbose sometimes. At the same time, it can be verbose, but it can also be sorely lacking as well. So yeah, I would recommend doing that, heading through the documentation. Also, it's just a good idea to start to learn to go through technical documentation. There's a number of different documentations here. So first you're gonna run, oh yeah, this is actually perfect, but knowing what you need to get, like I don't want people accidentally going through the CLI reference and API reference before you really understand what IAM is. So maybe just heading through here, but I'll share this. All of their services are kind of here at docs.aws.amazon.com/ the name of the service. So if I want to do like S3, just type that in, and now we are at S3 documentation. Super nice. And you can change up the services like that to find out what's going on. So you can in fact use this. Again, like I said, their documentation can be kind of hit or miss, but check it out. First, what's up, Circle Waves? Thank you for the follow. I saw you. I did in fact see you. Cyber Barbie, how you doing tonight? I'm glad you're able to join us. Hope you're streaming well today. So that, and everyone else, I think I gave Cyber Barbie a shout out maybe on Saturday, but that's what I was talking about. She does she's actually learning some Python stuff on stream right now. I do think if you're learning how to code, I highly encourage people who are going through the decoded section, if you're having trouble or you want to watch someone's learning process through like real time, and you're not watching someone just run through a crazy Python project and you're like, what's going on? I think you should check her stream out. It's pretty dope. I hang out on there a lot during the day while I'm doing my best to get work done, but sometimes it's hard sometimes, man. Days are tough. But yeah, check out that documentation. Yeah, Polyger, do it. I seriously, like I'm really, I love that so many more people have started to stream during this time. The more and more resources there are out there for things like this, like I am fully aware that everyone, someone might cut me on for 10 minutes and be like, this guy is not for me. That's okay. I'm okay with that. Like my only goal is to help people get the resources they need to kind of stick with this stuff. Anything with that has a high technical ceiling is hard to stay with. Like I understand how hard it is. Like I said, I had to try to learn how to code like 3 or 4 times before I really started to get it. And like I just wish I had some fun resources to kind of sit around with and like just, I don't know, go through it, make me, I think one of the problems was I didn't know that other people were really struggling. I thought it was just me, or I thought it was like me and like one other person that I met, and I thought we just sucked at everything that we were doing. But to kind of just see other people, mess up and see other people, well, I don't know how to do this, let me Google it. And I'm like, oh, you're telling me you Googled everything you Googled like 90 times on this stream, like you're telling me I'm allowed to do that? Yeah, I'm telling you should learn how to do that. I'm telling you that is integral to keeping your job, is learning how to Google that. And kind of, yes, perfect, fighting that imposter syndrome is it's hard. It is hard. And again, I think one of the things that helps it the most is to be a part of a community where you can talk to people about it, but also to see that like even the people who've been in it for years and years are still struggling over dumb stuff. I mean, just the other day with a great engineer, we worked through a problem for a couple hours and it ended up being a typo. And it's like, yeah, like, okay, it happened. Like, it happens. It's completely normal. Like, some people will freak out about that, especially when you're new to the stuff. You'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm so dumb, I can't believe it. It's like, I've done that 47 times in the past year, so don't sweat it. Like, don't sweat it. But yeah, all right, so yeah, I would say check out the documentation for this. So let's hop in. So let's log in. The first part, we are authenticating with Amazon Web Services right now. So your email, and remember, we are using, you might not see this, mine autofills for me, but you might see that it asks for user root account or IAM account. Remember, we are doing the root account because we have not set up an IAM user yet. Wolf Shirt, appreciate it. Thank you so much for the tier 1 sub. Good to have you. Welcome to the family. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully you can help us not make bad decisions in here in IAM, because I am a lazy IAM user when it's my stuff. I really am, for my own stuff. But that's mostly because I'm not doing anything wild in here. And I know how crazy it can get, so I always like keep it super simple. But we're gonna do things right this time, so help keep us on track. Appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that. Okay, so here's the first part of that authentication that I was talking about. So I have my username and my password, or my email, my password, whatever. And now it's asking for my authentication code. It's asking for that OTP, that one-time password that is sent to my phone. I'll show you how to set that up, but let me go ahead and enter mine. Also, like I said, you'll never see me enter 2 of these in a row. Whoops, I messed that up. If you're ever doing this live, for anyone else who wants to stream something or teach something, not that anyone will be able to do it. It's not a super easy process, but someone can actually decipher your one-time password. They can figure out, they can crack that code if they were to know what 2 of them in a row were. Again, it makes it easier for them. It's not going to be like, oh, they know how to do it now, but try not to do 2 in a row. If you mess up, if you put in a full one on the screen, or almost a full one, and someone's looking and you ran out of time or you mess up, just wait it out and wait for the next one to go, and it will work. So a lot of you are probably familiar with something like a bank, which will send you a text message, and that's usually available for a while. AWS is not like that. I think each password rotates every 30 seconds or so. So you'll have about 30 seconds to enter the one that's currently showing. And then it'll move on to the next one. I'll show you what apps you can use for this as well. But yeah, let's go. So we're inside, and we already know it has bad a setup. So if you want to get to IAM, go ahead, click in the middle and type in IAM. What's up, the Prim God? Welcome to the channel. Good to have you. I'm glad you're watching, learning a little bit about security and access management, identity and access management. So this is what you have when you're faced with this. Yours probably has some red X's right here. Well, I'll teach you how to fix those and what those are. So this security status is pretty important, especially if this is an organizational account. Again, I don't want to promote bad security practices, but you can get, if this is your own personal account, you can get away with some of these, especially I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Even using the root account, if you're just using this to mess around, I'm not gonna say I recommend it, but it's not so much of a big deal if you don't have all of these things set up, but do your best to try to get these set up. It's pretty simple, and there's some good security practices to kind of protect you right up front. So I would go through it. Yes, IAM puns are unavoidable. I will say this: it is very weird. I didn't think it would be weird, but to hear someone actually say IAM instead of IAM is like, it's very off-putting. And I can't tell you how many rooms I've been in where it happened and someone has something to say about it. So like, people feel very strongly about it. But yeah, there's gonna be a lot of jokes about that. I have 1 check mark. I apparently deleted keys. Dope. Okay, you're ahead of the curve. And I think they do that for you, which is good. So cool, you probably have 1 check mark, which is delete this root access keys. What are these access keys? Remember, go back to the 2 ways that I said we can authenticate. Oh, actually, I said there were 3 ways on that slide. The third way was to assume a role. So assuming a role is actually the third way of kind of authenticating and authorizing, but didn't want to talk about that until we talked about roles. But and that one's kind of weird, and because it also requires one of these forms of authentication first, but that's neither here nor there. Oh, and no, yeah, that's it. So root access keys. Let's take a look at access keys. Actually, no, take it back. Let's look at the page first. Got users. We talked about users. We talked about groups. We got groups. We talked about roles. We got roles. We got some roles here. And we have policies, customer managed policies. We talked about policies. I got 2 here that the customer manages. I'm the customer. And then we have identity providers. We're not going to talk about that yet, but this is something we will talk about. But again, click on users. Look at this. I got 2 users in here. One of them is A Brooks. That's me. I'm actually logged in as the root user, which is not listed here. But I do have A Brooks here. I am in the DevOps group. Check that out. We'll talk about this group in a second, but you can see some information here. You can see how old my access key is. This is really good. Why is this really good? You want to know how long people have had credentials in place for. The longer credentials are in place, the more likely for you security people, the more likely they have been compromised. So my access keys are 20 days old. My password is 954 days old. And last activity we've seen the past 7 days. This access key, again, is that programmatic access. This one's very, very important. They're both important, but this one's really important. And so some of the things that you can use this information for is you can actually set up policies where you must rotate your keys or must rotate your password every so often. 3 months is pretty common. But again, new keys and new passwords in case there's been any breaches, in case anyone's gotten access to any of your data. Again, same thing for password as well. You should have to switch those. Obviously, I did not follow my own rules. But again, do as I want to say do as I say. Do as I try to tell you. Do not do as I do. I do a lot of things wrong. But yeah, and you can see MFA is not enabled. That's another indication to you that I did not log in with this user. I logged in with my root user, which I shouldn't be doing. I should be logging in with this person, but MFA is not enabled for them. And then I have another user, which is Circle CI, which is a build tool, not important, but just you might say, hey, that's not a person, that's a tool, but it's not an AWS resource. And so to give Circle CI access, I had to also give them access keys, but you can see they have no password. It's not a requirement that you have both. You can have one or the other, or you can have both. And so they are able to access my account programmatically, but not via the console. And again, this is how long ago it's been. The reason why it's been that long is since I actually switched over to a new build tool, which is GitHub Actions, but that's not important right now. Ow. Wow. I don't know if y'all can see. I think my dog cut me and I didn't even notice. Can y'all see? It's little. It's a tiny little cut, but it hurts. I didn't even know about it. It stings a little bit. All right. So that is the user section. Pretty simple, but you can imagine how annoying this would be if you had, thousands, literally thousands or hundreds. It can be pretty annoying. So you have all your stuff over here on the left, but let's go back to the main page and let's take a look at groups. I have a singular group here. This is a group that I made. There are no groups by default. There are no groups by default. You have to create them. And again, that group allows for a collection of users. So I have one user in this group, which is me. Really weird. Why did I do that? I did this because I was like, hey, maybe one day I'll have a bunch of people in here working on something. And this was going to be the account that I originally used for some cool mastermind projects that I'm not going to be using now for a number of reasons. But I'm the only user in this group, which is interesting. But this group, you can check the permissions here. So we take a look at this. Look at this right here. This is very important. I will write this down for another day. ARN is very, very important. Another one of your sweet acronyms. ARN, that stands for Amazon Resource Name. Very important. That is how you identify any resource in Amazon. Every resource in Amazon has an ARN. It has a resource name that it can be uniquely identified with. And so this is that ARN. Generally, it's ARN : AWS : the service, which this one's IAM, : your account ID. So this is actually my account ID, and then some other information. So appreciate that, Nico. Or yeah, Nick. 404, you're not there, you are not found. MT, I like it. I don't know what it means yet. I'll have to decipher it in my brain. Yes, thanks for putting that up there. Amazon resource names, ARN. There's a lot of acronyms. Get used to it. Don't be scared of them. People say stuff to me about Amazon all the time. They're like, they say these letters. I'm like, yep, I heard you. I don't know what that is, but it's a thing. I heard what the end goal is. I will figure out what you said to me later, because I don't know what service that is. Never heard of that one. But that's pretty important. But you can see here it tells the group ARN, tells you the amount of users. Don't worry about the path right now, when it was created. But this is what's important here. You can manage the group from here, add or delete your users. So I could add Circle CI to this, and now I have 2 users in this group. Pretty simple. But then permissions are what are important. Permissions are very important, because these are the policies. These are the policies that are attached to this, determine what this group can do. So I have some cool stuff. I have administrator access. So my DevOps role is full admin access. So I have full administrator access, systems administrator access, IAM full access. But let's take a look at, let's show this policy. Very interesting. Look at this. Anyone who's ever seen JSON, this is in fact JSON. Can I make it a little bit bigger for you? All right. And it's got some keys and it has some values. JSON was super confusing to me when I first started learning things, because no one told me. All it was like a dictionary. Think about your dictionary. Think about, you pick up a dictionary, you want to find out what the word resource means. You go to the R's and you see resource, which is the key, and then it has a definition, which is the value. That's what these are. The key is on the left, it's separated by colon, and the value of that is on the right. So this is the statement. Allow, the effect that we want to have is allow. It could be deny as well. The action is star. So star is a wild card for everything. It says, hey, the action you can take is you are allowed to do every action on every single resource. That is what an administrator can do. So that's effectively what it says here. You are allowed to take any action, star actions, on star resources. On every single resource that's in here, you can go ahead and you can do that. So an interesting one. This one is very different. So I do not need these other 2 policies here. I actually have no idea why they're included. What's up, Bean Machine? What's up, Bob Monkey Jones? Love it. I love it. Look at this one instead. It looks a lot crazier, a lot more options. But again, don't sweat it. All key values. It will take you time to start to understand what all these things mean, and I'll show you where you can go to find out what they mean. But look at this. These are AWS services. So the action is right here. So what's the action that you're allowed to do? These are AWS services. So this ACM stands for Amazon Certificate Manager. Auto scaling is a service. CloudTrail is a service. All these are services, all of them. And it says, hey, you can do these things. So you can describe everything. So there are a number of actions that can take place. And so these are just saying you can do all the get actions. You can do all the list actions, all the request actions, all the resend actions. And as for EC2, you can allocate, you can use all the allocate stuff for EC2. And so this one's interesting, but you can see here how instead of giving me access to everything, they're listing out all the individual access. And let's see if it scrolls. These are all the actions I have, which is crazy. Okay, but what do I have access to do them on? It says, so so above, I can do all of these things on every resource, right? But these right here, these are a whole new set of things. I can do that on every resource as well. I don't know why it's broken up like this, but that's essentially how it works. It's, again, hard to look at, not very human readable. but it says what action can I do this? So I can, on IAM, I can perform get access key that was last used. I'm allowed to perform that action. And if I go down to the bottom, I can see on what resources I can perform that on. But yes, that's kind of what one looks like. And so this is what it would look like if the resource wasn't everything. So we've been seeing a lot of these where we have access to everything. Take a look at this one right here. This one is only for a couple of resources. How can you specify a resource? By that resource name. You can specify a resource by the name. What's the name? It's that ARN, that ARN that we just learned about. So this is a Amazon resource name for a very specific thing. And so this is how we define what resources we have access to. Complicated, very annoying. You might be like, I'm supposed to write that? Not necessarily. There are ways to easily reference these things. You don't need to know even how this is broken down. But yes, just know that this is referencing some type of resource inside of Amazon. But let's scroll to the top and let's get out of this bad boy. So yes, I have this here. This group is useless basically, but all good. We do have groups here. You just looked at policies. Those were policies and permissions. The things that you were actually seeing were permissions, like the JSON. That was the permissions. That's what I had access to, because all those things were together and they were attached to the group. That's the policy. The policy is those attached rules. Those attached permissions are in fact the policies. And so what are the two that I have managed? So Amazon gives you a bunch of AWS managed ones. So like that, the systems administrator one and the administrator access, I didn't write those. Amazon has a bunch of them set up for you already, but you can create your own as well. You can create your own custom policies. It says that, why is this off the screen? Well, it says that I have 2 of them. I don't know what 2 I created, but it says I have 2 of them. But roles. These roles are also things that I can attach to resources and things. Not attach. We can assume these roles. And what these look like, these look very similar. The permissions here for a role. So this is the role right here. It says AWS service role Cloud9. So this is a service role for Cloud9. So what Cloud9 is, remember we learned about text editors. Cloud9 is a text editor inside of Amazon. And this role seems like it's gonna allow us to do some cool stuff or access some things with Cloud9. So let's take a look at it. Let's take a look at what the policies are here, what the permissions are. So look, we've seen this. So it says, hey, you're allowed to perform these actions. So EC2, run an instance, create a security group, describe VPCs, describe subnets. I'm allowed to do all this stuff. CloudFormation, I can do it on any resource. So I'm allowed to do all those things. And if I go down a little more, I'm allowed to perform these actions on these resources. So that's how I want you to read it. It was super difficult for me in the beginning. I wish someone would have said that to me. This is the action you can take, either allow or deny. You can deny as well. I can perform these actions. You might be like, how do you know what actions there are? The documentation defines that. It is hard. I have to reference them every single time. You do not memorize these things. You memorize some of the common ones, but you do not memorize these things. They're things you'll have to reference. But yeah, I can do these things on these things. Allowed to do these actions on this resource. So the more and more you look at it, the easier it gets. I'm allowed to perform these actions on these resources with these conditions. So there are a few other things you can do in here. You can also do this not in the JSON. You can do it in here in this policy summary. I believe you can add things to it, but the JSON is easier, to be 100% honest. And it's a lot tougher to add them in the other way. But yeah, that that's kind of how those work. Any questions about those? Let's see. Oh yes, the star is a wild card for everything. It's a catch-all. You'll see that a lot, but yeah, they're wild cards. It basically matches everything. It says, give me everything. Star is its placeholder for anything and everything. Is JS an object-oriented language? Yes. Yes, it is. You can, it's interesting because you can write, you can write JavaScript functionally. I believe, I think, I'm sure you can write JavaScript functionally, but yeah, it's an object-oriented language. Let's see. What do we have next? What's that main page? Let's go back to the IAM dashboard. All right, let's look at the security status thing real quick. Delete your root access key. So when we were in users, if I had actually clicked on my user, it'll take you to this page. And again, even your user is in fact an Amazon resource. Check out that resource name at the top. Here's the ARN of my user. But I have a lot of options here. I can add them to groups. I can add permissions just for my user. So my user has IAM full access. It has all the IAM stuff in Glacier full access. So I can do these things by default. And then anything that's in your groups is like an addition to those things. But again, these things are the things that I have attached directly to my user. Not sure why these are attached to my user either. Again, I made this a long time ago. I also have administrator, to the group. This is the group. So, okay. So you can change permissions there, but again, I don't recommend, unless you're on your own account, if you're dealing with an organization, I would not modify permissions here besides maybe like IAM permissions so that people can manage their own things. Tags, not important right now. Security credentials. This is what's important here. This is where you go to manage your password and your MFA and to get keys. And so this is perfect. I can show you guys how to set up MFA right now, which, I'll show you how to set it up, but I'm going to change it, obviously, even though you don't have my password for this, but you can change the console password here. Just click manage. You can have it generate a password for you, a secure password for you, or give it your own. No big deal. You all done password resets before. Not a big deal there. What might be a big deal is assigning the MFA device. This can be complicated. You click manage and you get a bunch of options, and this is what gets tough. Virtual MFA device is what you're going to use for your phone. So yeah, that's what you want to do. If you have a YubiKey, like I was talking about, you'll choose this one. There are other type of hardware tokens, but a vast majority of people are in fact using this top one right here. What's up? What's that? Kenlin 1212, welcome to the channel. Oh, Mr. Well, it says Lynn, never mind. I was wondering if you were Mr. Anglade, but I don't think so. You on here, bro? You on here, Kenley? You on the stream tonight, man? If you are, what's up, bro? But that's where you do it at. This is where you set up your two-factor auth. You click your virtual device, and then it'll give you a list of compatible applications. Now, the one that most people use, I think it's Google Authenticator. Don't use Google Authenticator. It is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But the problems with the Google Authenticator, it'll be in your app store, is that there's no easy backup in case you lose your phone. I use something called Authy. And maybe I can show you a code. How can I show you this without? Look for Authy. Authy is pretty great. It's what I use for all my two-factor auth stuff. They will have an app in your app store. Just look for Authy. Really nice. It will allow you to back up your stuff in case you lose your phone. It's pretty dope. But there's a bunch of tools out there. Use whatever one works for you. Again, I like Google Auth, but I've lost my phone a number of times, and it is really tough to get all of your accounts reset without having access to two-factor auth. Most of them you need to have two-factor to be able to reset passwords or anything like that. So yeah, So use whatever works, but I recommend Authy. It's free. And so all you're gonna do is download that app. You're gonna click show QR code. Now you guys can see my QR code. So you could in fact get my codes right now. Not a big deal. I'm gonna change this, but you also do not know my password for this user. But you just go ahead and you click and you scan that. And what it will have you do is it'll have you put 2 MFA codes in a row. It'll do that to sync some things up. So you'll have to put one in. You'll have to either wait or click the next button and enter in 2 in a row. It's important that they're in a row. What's up, Japanese sending? It's too small on my screen. Welcome to the channel. What's up, Devotu? Welcome to the channel. Thank you so much. Should we be adding a user? Oh yes, I'm tripping. I already had a user installed. Yeah, let's go ahead and let's add a user. Let's do it fresh. Users, add user. Pretty simple. Go ahead. Yes, you should do this too. You should go through and do this. Thank you very much, Hustle Marsalis. Thank you for that. Yes, you should be adding a user. So go ahead and I'll call this again. I'll create a user called Mastermind. All right. So when you create a user, you can create multiple users from the same screen. Really nice. If you want, you can go ahead. Yes, you can do what I do here. But right now, just create the user. Create a user that you want to log in as normally. So create that user. I'm going to create Mastermind here. But you can add another user if you'd like here. But then you want to say, what kind of access is this user going to have? So pretty simple. This is a very simple setup process for creating a user. Again, what's programmatic access? It tells you right here. This is a access key ID and secret access key for the AWS API, CLI, and SDK, and other development tools. So click this. We're going to be using this right now. Click that and click AWS Management Console Access. If you do not click this user will not be able to log into this console. That does not mean they can't fix it, but you have to fix it from the command line. So you can do that. You can auto generate your password or add a custom password. I'll leave mine on auto generate right now because they generate a pretty safe and secure password for you. If you're someone who likes to memorize your passwords, I highly encourage you use a tool like LastPass or 1Password to manage your passwords. I use LastPass, little thing right here, super nice to manage my passwords so I can keep my passwords secure. Now you do need to memorize a pretty secure password for your LastPass, but you only got to memorize one and then you can use this for everything else. Again, 1Password works great. There's a number of tools, but I would get a password manager if I were you. Pretty important. My AWS passwords are 24 characters, so not going to memorize them. So I use LastPass for that. And then user must create a new password and next sign in. Why would you want to select that? You would want to select that if you were creating the account for someone else, and you wanted to give them the access to create whatever password they want. I find that if it's up to me, you gotta use the password I give you. I'm just gonna generate a random one, just because again, people like to make passwords that are cat 1, and the more characters you tell them to put in, they will add the word cat again until it matches and add an exclamation point 1. And again, you want to do whatever you can to mitigate work you're gonna have to do later. And ensuring people have secure passwords, letting AWS do it for you is nice. So I usually decheck that. It's up to you, but since you're creating this probably for yourself, go ahead and uncheck that and go ahead and get permissions next. Here's where you can start to assign what permissions this person has. So you won't have a group here. You can create a group if you want. Yes, LastPass does generate passwords for you. Check this out. I go here and I go to generate secure password right there, and I say I want 24 characters. This new song. Even though I am an anime fan, I want to talk anime with people one day too as well, because I'm relatively new to the anime world, and I'm looking for some good stuff. But we'll talk about that later. But you can generate a secure password if you'd like and use that. That's what I do every time I need to reset my password. Again, it's really nice tool to get on. Let's see. So you can create a group right here. You don't need to do that right now. Not a big deal. I wouldn't need to do that. Tags also not important. They tell you this is optional. Tags can be important. What tags do is they help you assign some metadata to different resources in Amazon, and again, it helps you to organize, track, and control access for the user. We don't need to worry about that right now. We'll use those later for other things, but we don't need to do that right now. Next, review. So right now this user won't really have access to anything. This is actually really good. This is really good. So do it just like that. Don't give them any groups, nothing. And then create that user. All right, when you get to this page, do not leave this page. Do not click off this page. Don't do it. Why won't you click off this page? Don't click off this page because this is the only time you're gonna have access to the credentials for this user. If you lose them out now, as the administrator of the root account, you will in fact be able to, you'll be able to fix them, but that's annoying. Like this is, right now is where you'll want to grab everything you need. So I highly recommend, what do we set on the permissions page? Nothing on the permissions page right now. Just keep going. Yes, you can query tags. Yes, you can query tags. That is something they're good for, but you don't need to put them in place right now. But yeah, if you go back to on the permissions page, just keep going. This user is going to have 0 permissions right now. But yeah, do not go past this page though. Get here. For your own safety, go ahead and download this CSV. Send it to your downloads, call it whatever you want. It's a comma separated value sheet. It will download. I highly recommend, if you're using LastPass, you put this straight into LastPass as a secure note or something, or put it wherever you do anything. It's super important. It's good to have as a backup. Yeah, keep it around. Now, you can all see my access key ID. That's great. Not a big deal. You can see it's pretty long. Can't really memorize it. That's pretty important. And then we have a secret access key right here. I'm not going to click show. If you click show, it'll show all of it to you. I'll get mine out of my CSV in a little bit off screen. And then it has your password as well. But like I said, all that information is in the CSV that you downloaded, or you can send email instructions to have someone be able to do that. So yes, all the information you need for this person's account. All right, so what else we're doing? So yeah, let me know when you guys are comfortable here. What's up, Reddy Key? How you doing tonight? Because there we go. I had to make my, nope, that's too big. There we go. Am I from front-end masters? Absolutely not. I am easily one of the worst front-end programmers you've ever seen in your life. I can help design and build robust APIs and and set up world-class infrastructure that can serve millions of clients. I cannot center an image on a page to save my life, and I mean that. Will I be on front-end masters? Okay, yeah, sure. We'll be on front-end masters. Don't know what it is, but since front-end, I'm the worst, just so you know. Margin auto, let's go. Hey, well, I don't even know where to put that. I know where to put that. I mean, I'm not the most terrible, but I'm not very good. Yes, 2080 Ti. So I'll be honest with you, this 2080 Ti is not as amazing as I thought it was going to be. I sold my 2070 Super to get this instead, and it's nice. It's nice, but it's not as amazing. I do think I have something set up wrong on my computer because I can't stream all that cleanly when I'm playing games. It's really weird. I feel like my computer's really powerful. I feel like I should be able to do something, and like it streams, but it's way choppier than I would like. Okay, let's see here. Flexbox hurts my heart. I mean, Flexbox, I think it's good. I don't know, man. Yeah, so but I even have problems I had a 2 PC setup before this, and I even had problems. I have 2 capture cards in this machine, and they were still not, they weren't that, like, they were choppy. Like, they were clear, but they were choppy. It was weird. It was weird. I messed with a lot of settings. Like, I watched all the videos. I think I have something wrong. There's something wrong in my, like, inherently wrong in my underlying setup. Do you learn animations in CodePen? I don't know. I don't know. I don't use CodePen. I don't know. What resolution? So I was gaming in 1440p, but I was streaming in I tried 1080 at first, but I went down to 720, and it was like equally as like weird. Didn't get any better. All right, so make sure you grab the information from this page. Now let's use it. So obviously, you know, you can use your username and password to log in as this user, but what we care about right now is we're gonna learn how to use the CLI and get set up on the CLI. That's gonna be the fun part tonight. You know how to log in. But after you create this user, go ahead and when you're done with it, download the CSV, click close. What we'll do now is take a look back at this dashboard. What you can do is, now this should be green. You may have to give them a certain user to do it, but I think it's, as long as you created one, someone let me know. Go ahead and let me know if this turns green after you created that user. I believe it will. I don't think they need access. To get rid of this check, obviously you got to create that group. You can do that later. You don't need to do it now. But if you're right there right now, go ahead and manage your group and just go ahead and create a new group. I'll do it right now. Let's call this, we'll call this group stream, whatever. And you'll see this process is also simple. And what you can do is, if you're going to be using that user you just picked for full administration, go ahead and give it administrator access. It's okay. You need a user with full administration access, most likely, especially if this is your account. I highly recommend doing this for the user that you're going to be logging in with. So you can kind of click this or go through and click whatever you want of these pre-made policies for now, and click next and create your group. Real simple, not incredibly hard. So yes, the concepts can be tough to wrap your head around. The implementation of them is usually fairly straightforward. And what people are paying you to know is to understand how those concepts work. And sometimes it's not even to implement them. You can tell someone else to go implement it. But yeah, it's super easy to create a group, no problem. If I want to add people to the group, how do I do that? I can either, click on the group, which I just did, and add a user to this group. So users can be in multiple groups, and I can, I'm gonna go ahead and just add mastermind to this group. Just like that, mastermind's in the group. Pretty simple. And now that next green mark, if you click back on dashboard, you should have a new green check. You should have a new green check there. So let me know if you see that. When we create the user, which access type should I choose? Both. You should choose both programmatic and console. Remember, what's programmatic? Programmatic is through the CLI, the SDKs, etc. And this right here is the console. So logging in to this interface that you're looking at right now is the console. But programmatic is what we're going to do in a second. So choose both. Cool. And that one should already be gone. This one, again, I showed you how to set up MFA. The way you set up MFA is go to the user, select the user's name, go to security credentials, and right here as assign MFA device. So again, we're gonna keep moving on this part just so we can make sure we get through actually using the AWS CLI and getting that set up. But this is where you would set it up to get that last green check gone. I highly recommend you set up MFA. It's optional, but you should set it up. And I think that will solve all of your green check problems. Password policy. Password policy is good. Let's talk about they take you, luckily, if you just click down the arrow, it'll take you to where you need to go to do the thing. And so I'm gonna click on it and I'll show you what my password policy looks like. And all I did was click the policy that they have. So minimum of 6 characters, require 1 letter, all that stuff. Now, you can click change it, and you can enforce, you know, if I want it, like I said, I usually like to, mine are all 24 letters, but I can enforce that. I'm not enforcing it right now because I'm the one managing this account, and I'm going to set that up accordingly. But what I can do is I can say, hey, everything's got to be 24 characters. I don't know what the maximum is. Actually, let's see. Oh, I can make you have an 128. Oh, I can enforce this. I can make you have this many characters in your password. That's nice. I mean, you're kind of mean if you do that, but you can. So I'm gonna leave mine at 6 right now. It doesn't really matter. And you know, you can set whether or not it has to have a special character or a number and all those things. So good, you have flexibility, you have that granularity. You can do that. Prevent password reuse. If I don't want people to be able to reuse the same password, I can go ahead and make sure they don't have that. What's up, Bernie? 190, welcome to the channel. Good to have you. Good to see you. 256 a bus. I'm good on 256. That's a lot. That's a lot of characters. But 24, I really like the 24 level for me, at least. But yeah, that's where you can change it, and that will get your last green check. But as you're starting to see, there's a lot of options in the console. So it's I'm sure it's overwhelming. There's a lot of stuff. It's okay to click around, to explore. Pretty much everything you do will ask you for confirmation before you do something. So don't be too scared of messing something up. If you just want to click on something to see what it does, you know, you can click that. So I can deactivate regions and things like that, log into different regions. Like if I don't want anyone to be able to accidentally put things in Asia Pacific, you know, I can deactivate that. And see, it gave me a pop-up. Like if you saw those blue links and you were like, I gotta click it, but I'm scared, click it, see what happens. You know, it's gonna give you a message, you know, letting you know. So yep, you can do a bunch of stuff like that, but click around and see what you have access to. There's a number of things in here that we aren't going to talk about. So click around, see what it is, get comfortable, start to know where things are so that you can move faster through this. But yeah, there we go. Pretty simple so far, but now let's get to the fun stuff. Right at 9 o'clock, let's get into the programmatic access. And now we're going to get into the terminal. Why do I have so many? That's weird. Okay. We'll go ahead and update ZSH. All right. We are in the terminal. You should hop in your terminal. Hopefully, you already have the AWS CLI set up. Again, you're gonna hear me say the same things over and over and over again. Again, I think there's a significant benefit to to repetition. CLI, AWS CLI, the command line interface. This is where you can issue commands to the AWS. You're actually you're interacting with the AWS APIs, and you can do that from the command line of your computer. Windows, Mac, Linux, all good. We installed it last time. If you did not get it installed, I'm not going to take any time to show you how to install it now. It is a homework assignment in the first. Let's see, where was it a homework assignment at? Because we can just use that for reference really quick. It was a homework assignment week 1. Yeah, week 1. No, or maybe I didn't. Oh, it was in the slides. It was in the slides for week. I think it was in the slides for week 1. Let's see. Let me just make sure. I should have put it in there. That's my bad. So maybe I will take a little bit of time to show you how to get it set up. I know I put it in here somewhere. Set up in Tor. Where's my scroll bar? Oh yeah, I put it in here. Install the AWS CLI, but this will give me the link that I can share with you. The Amazon, I should have just looked at the chat. I asked and then I never looked back at the chat. You guys helped me out a lot. Would have saved me some clicking. What's up, Adrian Jenke? I hope that's how you say it. What's up? Yes, can I share the music mix? I'll share it right now. Royalty free lo-fi. I hope it works. Like I hope it works for me. Share, copy, playlist link. It is from Spotify. Spotify is my streaming service of choice. All right. Can I do the CLI setup you're about to do before setting up the console configs you just set up? You can do them in any order you want, but you will not be no. So you can set up, you can install the CLI, but you cannot use the CLI until you set up a user. Yes, you don't need to get all the green check marks. The green check marks don't matter. You just need to have a user set up. As long as you have a user set up that has that, and you chose programmatic access, then you'll be able to do what I'm doing now. Will we use this for accessing EC2 servers, or we have to set up PuTTY keygen for Windows? Great question. You will have to, so you will use this to interact with and control the services themselves. So you can use this to maybe get information about an EC2 instance, to spin up an EC2 instance, but you will need to set up PuTTY for Windows, or use WSL2 or something to SSH in. You won't need, you'll need, I'm actually glad you said that now, Keylime TV, so that I can put something. I'm going to add that to the slides for the EC2 stuff that's coming next week, because SSH keys with PuTTY on Windows is a paradigm I did not account for. So that's good. That's good to know. Thank you for bringing that up. The Mac terminal, but never use it or open it. Perfect. Yeah, you don't need to open it yet. Now we're gonna use it. If you're not sure if it is installed, go ahead and type in AWS --version, and you get some output like this. If it is not working, it will tell you like AWS not found, command not found or something. So try that out. If you're trying to get it installed, I think I shared the link again. I highly recommend installing version 2. The differences between version 2 and version 1 are their underlying infrastructure and how they're built and bundled up. At version 1, you need Python and pip, and you got to manage all that stuff, and you can get that installed that way. AWS CLI version 2 is a standalone executable that you just download the package and it'll build it for you. Really nice. But type in AWS --version and you're good to go. So for anyone who wasn't a part of the Decoded stream and you didn't learn a little bit of Linux, all this is nothing special. This is your computer. This is everything that I'm doing here. If I were to click on this and go into my files and then go into my documents, I can do the same thing here. This is a representation of my computer, and I can go into my documents. So I'm going to change the documents, and if I look here, I see apps and decoded and false.go and hello.go. If I look here, look, I got decoded and false.go. The same files are here that are here because this is in fact my computer. This is just an interface for me to control it via commands, via manual commands, rather than the graphical user interface. So I'm giving it commands right here. I'm just gonna log off. What? You don't log off. Don't log off. When I started working and set up the AWS CLI, when you mentioned it like 40 minutes ago, can I just start with whatever you're about to do, or would I have to have that done to be explained? I was gonna go back and do it later. It is okay for you to do it later. You can do it later. Right now, I'm just gonna show you how to configure it. So you get it, like once you install it, you have to then configure it. And the configuration is pretty simple. So I just wanna show you how to do that. Should I do this on Linux? Wherever you're most comfortable, wherever you installed it at. Linux, if you're comfortable with it, Mac, if you're on Mac, whatever your operating system is. But yeah, I mean, I usually tell people to use Linux if you're comfortable with it. I think it's good to learn this stuff on Linux. So now I have Brew, so it made it easy to install. Yeah, Brew makes it does make it easy. So no matter where you are, you don't have to worry about your location. All you have to do to start to get this set up is I want you to either go back to that page if you still have it up, or open up that CSV. So I'm going to open up my CSV, and I'm going to open up my CSV in a second, but open up that CSV on your computer. If you can't open it locally because you don't have Excel or something, drop it into Google Docs and it'll open it up for you. If you're in Windows, you can use Chocolatey to pretty easily install it as well. I do highly recommend anyone on Windows trying to check out Chocolatey. It's pretty nice. I believe they have a nice I believe they have an AWS package, I believe. Let's see. that the wrong search? Yeah, they have it. Yeah, they have AWS CLI. So all you would have to do if you install Chocolatey would do Choco, install AWS CLI on Windows, and it would install it for you. Super nice. What's up, Ian Ray? Linux boys raised up, brother. I love it. I love it. Okay. So all you have to do to configure it is pretty simple. Do I already have anything? Okay, cool. So if you were to give it a command like this, again, you're not gonna know what the commands are. Right now it says unable to locate credentials. You can configure your credentials by running AWS configure, and this is all that we need to do to configure our AWS account. So I'm gonna type it in. You can copy and paste it if you want, but AWS configure. Pretty simple. It's a command that says, hey, AWS, go ahead and configure yourself. Go ahead and kick off your configuration for me. So it's a pretty easy walkthrough, very simple, 4 or 5 options, I think. And when you do it, the first thing it asks for is your AWS access key ID. All right, so now go into your CSV, or if you still have that page pulled up, and copy your AWS access key and put it right here. So right here, you can see it says none, and that may be a little confusing. If you already have credentials set up, this will show the last few digits of it so that you know what it is. Yes, I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna paste it in right now. I'm gonna type in some stuff, and then I'm gonna send you guys to my main video screen, and I'm gonna type it back in and then come back. But yeah, no, we don't need any 102 references in here at all. If you don't know what that means, go to know your meme or whatever. But yeah, so go ahead and paste that in. It'll be something like, whoops. I love that. Yo, where's that Steve Harvey? What's that called? I love that. I didn't know that was an emote. Or is that something you have because you're subscribed to someone? I will subscribe to that person to get those emotes. That's amazing. All right. Let's see. So if we do, I'm just gonna type in a bunch of stuff as if this was my access key. So you put it in and it'll save it, and it'll go ahead and it'll configure these for you. What this is doing, everything in Linux, or really the way these things work is everything is kind of a file in a folder or an executable. The directory, all the setup for this is just a file. There's a credentials file somewhere else that you can manually edit to do this. Not important to know right now. Right now, all you need to know is to set up a user. All you do is put in that, and then the secret key is going to be something even longer. And you hit that. Now, you will get to this. You will get to default region name. This is optional. You do not need to do this, but I recommend doing it. Set up whichever region you want to use. So what do we know about regions? We know regions are those geographic places around the world where AWS resources can exist. We know that there are availability zones within each region. We do not have to worry about those AZs, but what does a region look like? How can you check one? And again, go right back to your AWS account. Go back to your AWS account, and remember the regions are up here. So I can click down, and all they want is this little identifier. US East 1, US East 2, US West 1, US West 2, AF South 1. They want one of these. So I'm closest to US East 1. So this is the one that I normally use. So it's US-East-1. Again, you can copy and paste if you like. And that's what you're gonna put in here. And go ahead and put that in. Default output format. You can leave this as none. It's gonna default to JSON. Leave it. You can just leave it as is, and that's it. That's the whole setup. So put in your username, put in your password. So put in the access key, the secret access key, and the region. If you messed up one of them, not a big deal. All you got to do to do it again, to fix it, run AWS configure again. And now check this out. It gives you a little preview to let you know what you typed before. So I'm like, hey, I'm not sure if I'm using the right keys. I can see that this worked. So yeah, these are not my things. So you can go ahead and try to plug them in. They're not going to get you anywhere. But once you do that, you're configured, and you can confirm you're configured again by, typing in a command. What was it? Can I do STS, assume role or whatever? But commonly people do this. And if you don't have any buckets, nothing will happen. Whoops. not a big deal. But as long as you get as long as you don't get an error, it'll give you an error if your keys aren't right. But if your keys are right, no matter what command you put in, it will kick it back. So I can do it in STS, get roll or whatever, but mine are not going to work because I put in a fake key. Remember, put in a fake one. So if you did not download the CSV file when we got to that screen, you'll need to go either like delete that user and recreate it, or you don't need to do that. If you're still logged in as your root user, you can do this. Go back to IAM so that we can manage our user. Go to that user, click on the user, go to security credentials, and you can grab this information here. So the way that you can get the access keys is you can create an access key. You cannot use this one. So it probably already has one for you created. You can X out of that one if you want. You can delete it. But you need to create an access key. When you do that, it will create a second one. Each user can have 2 sets of access keys, only 2. 2 at a time. So you can't have 2 different. So I know that may seem weird. Like, how can you have 2 sets of credentials? You can have 2 sets of access keys. And so, you know, I'm not going to download this right now, but that's how you can get it. And what you can do now is I'm going to make the other one active once I figure out which one I'm actually using, is and download that CSV. I think you should be good now there. The way that I opened up the AWS stuff here is I go into your terminal. If you're on Mac, type in terminal, open up your terminal application. If you're on Windows, if you installed it natively in Windows, you can open up your command prompt or PowerShell. And if you're on Linux, you can open up your terminal as well. And again, AWS configure is how you get back to that configuration. So I'm going to take you guys off of this screen so that I can enter in my details really quick so we can see some things work. So let's go ahead. I'm just, so you know what I'm doing. I'm opening up my CSV right now with LibreOffice because I'm on Linux. And I'm just copying and pasting in my access key. And now I'm pasting in my secret key. And I'm leaving US East 1 the same, leaving the last one the same, and I am done. So let's go back, Academy View. And oh man, now I showed it to you. Now I gotta change them. No big deal. Actually, that's good because I can change it right now. So also I want to show you that this user actually doesn't have any credentials either or any permissions either. So this is the file that they're going into. Not important that you know it, but I'm just going to show you. There's a hidden.aws folder and there's a credentials file, and they'll get set up right here. But again, I'm showing them to you. I'm about to delete them right now since I already accidentally showed them to you because I thought I wouldn't, but no big deal. Once they're in there, just check this out though. If I do AWS S3 LS, it's still gonna fail. Oh wait, it should have failed. I have no permissions. All good. Did I give myself admin permissions or not? Let's see. And maybe I need to delete those right now actually, since this has admin privileges. Or does it? Oh yeah, because we made a role for it. We made a stream role. All right, well, look, you can revoke access, super easy. Look how easy I can revoke it. Security credentials. Make inactive, just delete. Look at that. If you stole my credentials, you no longer have access to do anything on my account, which is great. But these credentials are very, very important to keep safe. With administrator access like that, any of you could have gone in and spun up whatever resources you wanted to in my environment. You could have locked me out of my own environment. It's pretty interesting. So be careful with your creds. I would never steal your creds. All good. Hey, is what's done is done. What's done is done. You can't do anything with it now. I'll go ahead and I'll update them again. So, you know, if I want to create new keys, don't be afraid. They wanted to make it easy for you to, you know, rotate your keys out if you needed to for situations exactly like this. So if I need new access keys, I create new access keys and I simply download that CSV. Can I delete this here? I'll call this new creds, all caps. And this time I won't let you see it. And so I downloaded new creds. I'll take you back off. And just as easy, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna update it. Very, very simple process. And there we go. And again, all you got to do to put it in is AWS-configure. New one. New one. And paste that in. All right. Sorry. All right, wrong thing. That was, oh, I did it again. I did it twice. See, my mind got off. Look, this is third time's the charm. Check it out, take it in. This is bad. I definitely need to figure out another way. Yeah, I was gonna clear, but then I got immediately sidetracked because a message popped up, and I did it twice. Come on, you see that? Don't sweat it. I'm a professional, you know? I get paid to do this, and I make mistakes like this all the time. So again, you got to be conscious of it. I think every time we've done IAM portions of this, I have shown my keys, and I thought I had it this time. I really thought I had it. Inactive again. Big mistake. Now you know I make mistakes. Third time's the charm. I'm not gonna get sidetracked this time. So look at this. New creds, new creds, new creds. All right, you can't mess up new creds. That's, you know, real simple. Once again, look at me. I'm not gonna mess it up. I'm paying attention. My mind is ready to do the task at hand, and we're gonna get it right on the third time. So 1, almost done. AWS configure, paste it in. 2, copy, paste it in. All right, clear the screen, close the doc, make sure all the docs are closed. Swag, we've done it. We've successfully done this. Third time. Oh, I'm a pro. I did so good that time. So yes, so now I can do, again, AWS S3 LS is what I'll usually do, just because I do have some buckets here. So these are my S3 buckets. So what essentially happens here is these commands are now authenticating, and they're authenticating and authorizing with AWS. When I run S3 LS, the different commands you have, so you can do AWS help. So let's first learn that. Man pages in AWS are extremely difficult to read. Not AWS, in Linux, there's an art to reading them. I do not recommend you use man pages out of the box. I will give you the reference right now. AWS CLI reference. All right, so start here. I got error occurred. If you got error occurred, that might mean a couple things. That might mean you never gave your user you might not have ever created a group or gave them any specific permissions. So that's actually really good. I like that. That's great. You know what I'm gonna do is, it's okay for you to see the access key. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna remove my user from this group. So now my mastermind, now my user has no permissions. My user has 0 permissions right now. And this is what you probably are facing. So now that my user has 0 permissions, look at this. You got an error occurred. This is probably what you got. Remember, everything we're talking about tonight has been identity and access management. If you give your user no permissions, they cannot access certain things. So I'm trying to perform an action on top of S3. I'm trying to, and it tells me exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to call list buckets. I want to do list buckets on S3, and I'm not allowed to do that. So let's see how we can give my user that permission. So again, you can do it a number of ways. I could just go to my user, click on that user that we just, are working with. and give them permissions. So you can add permissions here. Click that add permissions, and there's a number of options. So if you don't have any group set up, go ahead and copy permissions from attach existing policies directly. So this is not highly recommended, but you can do that. And so this is where all the AWS ones that already exist, like administrator access, I would give, like, just to see things work, go ahead and click administrator access here, review, add permissions, and now I have access to do whatever I want. So if I do this again, now that I have some permissions on here, I can see that. Or if I do AWS EC2, what is it? Describe instances. And I don't think I have any, but I don't know why it showed up like that. But yeah, you can do AWS STS. Give me some help. Was it get caller identity? I think is the one that everyone uses, but it's a lot of words for me to type. I think it's assume role. Yeah, get dash caller dash identity. So I can do AWS get dash STS get dash caller dash identity. And this will give me my user ID and my account. So it'll give me some information in JSON. Remember, key and value. A key, which is the user ID, this is the value of that user ID. Account, this is my account number. My Amazon resource name, this is my resource name. So so I was able to do that. So did I add a policy to, I'm making a group. So yes, if you're making a group, you're gonna add the policy to that group. But yeah, it's definitely best practice to make a group and not assign directly. I just want to show you that there's another way you could do it. The best practice would be to create a group and assign the policies to the group and add your user to that group. I'm actually gonna go back and change all my stuff. But yeah, so now what I would recommend is I shared the AWS CLI reference for you. You can find out how to interact with all their services. So like if I think I do AWS help, it'll tell me what if I don't want help? What if I just want, I want it to list the different things it has available. I know it'll usually, sometimes I think if you mistype a service, like if I do like S4, I think it'll tell me the services. So yeah, so it's AWS, the name of the service that you want to use, so like Lambda and RDS and the different services Amazon has, and then what you want to do with it. So it takes a long time to get comfortable using the AWS CLI, but I want you to think about it at a high level, and all you're doing is you are submitting commands to AWS to do certain things. So right now, like when I do AWS S3 LS, I'm saying, hey, go ahead and list out what buckets I have in S3. So these are storage buckets. You don't really know what S3 is yet, but this is a place for storage. And so my actual website is actually sitting, my websites are sitting in here. So bootcamp, bootcamp.mastermind.io. So if I do AWS S3 LS, if I want to see what's in this bucket, I can go into the console and see it, but I can also see what's inside of it like this, and I can see the different files and folders that are inside of it. I can download those things from here. I can do a bunch of different stuff, all from the command line. And again, that programmatic access is great because then I can automate things, like because I can access it through code through the command line by giving it commands. I can automate a lot of things, and I can do things a little bit faster. Yeah, let's see. Let's see. Finally got AWS installed while working and watching the stream and trying to get my ass in gear, ready for the six-figure salary. Yes, I can't tell you. Look, you are, just by knowing that AWS has a programmatic access interface, which is the CLI, and understanding what a CLI is, that is a command line interface, and that you can issue commands to AWS, you have 80% more knowledge than you have more knowledge than 80% of the people in the population right now about cloud computing, about AWS. You're already that far ahead of everyone. And so the goal is just to keep moving up that ladder just a little bit. But I'm telling you, I'm not exaggerating to you, stay on it. It all just starts to make sense. And the Prime again said it today. He said that the hardest part of learning, and I've heard this before, the most difficult part of learning is that first 20%. And again, you're still in the first 20%. When this week's done, you'll be 24% done. But like, fight through this part. Keep that energy. Yes, I'm not joking. You know more than many people now. And by next week, you'll have tried a couple things, and you'll know, you'll be up to 83%. You'll know more than 83% of the population. Then you'll be in the top 10% of the population who knows things about cloud computing. And that's all it is. Most people don't know about this stuff. And you'd be surprised. Everyone thinks there's a billion people out here who know this stuff. Everyone thinks the talent pool is so grand. It's not. It really isn't. I do think it's a little bit different when it comes to software. Appreciate the Dev 08. I really do, man. I always support. Software is a little bit different. It's a little more saturated, but you can even set yourself apart even in software. And when I say software saturated, I'm only saying that in comparison to this. But this bolsters, if you're someone who does software, understanding this stuff, it will set you far apart. Being able to walk in and say that, hey, I understand, how, identity and access management works inside of AWS. I understand roles, and I understand, assuming roles, and I understand policies and permissions and things like that. People really love that stuff. People really do. They love that stuff. But yeah, that is so that's the AWS CLI. I was going to show you that. I mean, we saw it. You saw how when I removed my administrator permissions, I couldn't do anything. But what I could have done is, for this user, even programmatic access. Remember how it said this person cannot list anything in S3. I could say, if I wanted a role that someone could only see what's in the S3 bucket, you can do that. Or maybe you wrote some kind of script at your company, and you want to push something from your AWS account to my AWS account. I don't want you to have access to anything. Generally you want to follow something called the rule of least privilege, and it is in the homework. If you look at the AWS security practices, the IAM security practices, it's giving people or tools and applications the least amount of access to things that they can get. I can make it so that you can only access this one bucket. I had a couple of different buckets, and it goes even further than that. I can say, hey, inside of this bucket, you only have access to this folder. You can only give me fonts, and you can only put stuff there. You can't see what's in there. You can only drop stuff off for me, and I can make it that granular so that that's all you can do. I can set up a policy that says exactly that. So it's really nice. It's really nice, but it can be very confusing. It can be confusing to orchestrate all of the permissions, but how can you do that easily? You can do that with groups. It helps a lot, and roles helps a whole lot with orchestrating permissions amongst a lot of people. Another important thing is that we'll dive into a little bit later is that there's some interesting interactability with we're talking about the same account. Part of the AWS account process is that underneath an organization, we will talk about that, you can have multiple accounts under a single organization, and the way that those accounts can interact also changes a little bit, not a ton. But we will be going over that in the future. Put a picture of mastermind from the beginning class. Hey, do what you got to do. If that helps you stay motivated, all good. 100%. Doesn't bother me in the least bit. Having that be a meme would be funny. But yeah, definitely go watch all the videos. Definitely read through some of the stuff. I didn't give you a lot of reading this time. There's the shared security, there's the shared responsibility model. Man, my brain just went out of the door. Shared responsibility model, I gave you a little read up on that. Is basically the information that I told you, but from AWS's mouth directly about that. So I will get familiar with that. That will be on the quiz at the end of the week. read through those security best practices. A lot of them may not make sense to you. Again, context is key for a lot of things. Not important. Read through them, do your best to understand them. One day, as we're going through things, more of those will start to make sense. It'll take time to really understand those things super in depth. Again, dive into IAM a little bit, click around, just get comfortable. It's not, IAM is not managing it itself is not a crazy task, but the concepts underneath IAM can be when you get to be like when you're messing with larger organizations, more people. So IAM is very, very important to know, and I highly encourage everyone to dive in a little bit more. Remember that that's where you can manage your access to keys and passwords and stuff. We learned how to use our programmatic access key to set up our AWS CLI to be able to make requests to Amazon. So try that out, give yourself admin access, and try to mess with it a little bit. Google like, hey, how do I set up this? Like you can even so AWS IAM. So we're doing IAM stuff. Check this out. I can do AWS IAM. What can I do with this? Can I I can change a password. I can create these access keys. I can create a group all from the command line. So everything that you can do, I can do all these things. So don't sweat it. Don't worry about learning how to get to this and like knowing that you can go through these things. Not important. I'm just showing you that you can do all this stuff. I can get an account summary. I can delete stuff, attach roles. Get group, get user. Yeah. So like, it's really nice. AWS IAM, get user. I probably need a name. Get user, and yeah, it just tells me information about my user, when it was created and stuff. Again, I can interact with AWS the same way that I do it from the other thing, from the console. So any questions about all of that? That felt like a lot. Any questions about all that? People asked a lot of questions. That's dope. Appreciate it, Sean from LA. Peace. I get it. Go recover, watch the stuff. I'm telling you, it'll sink in. It'll sink in. Are there careers or projects commonly focused on access? And yes, there are. Well, I don't know if they're career tracks, but there are. Let's see. Identity, and I think there are identity and access manager roles. Manager salary. Yeah, identity. I don't know why it's written like this, so maybe that's not a thing, but like, let's see if there are actually jobs. They're gonna come up as other names, but 100%, like I told you, look at this: identity and access management manager for a financial institution, identity and access management, systems administration, but specifically around IAM identity. Like there are absolutely roles for just this. It's very important, but I'm telling you, like for places like this, they have significant intricate presences, so it's it's interesting. So if you have any, if you're someone who has experience with LDAP and stuff, that may be good resume experience if you're trying to do something like this. And again, people call it different stuff, but you can see there's also just a lot of jobs that are called identity and access management, subject matter expert, or manager or consultant. So there are jobs like everywhere in the cloud, like all the specifics of the cloud, there really are. But yeah, it'll probably fall under cloud security. Most of what you're gonna be doing in cloud security roles, actually, that's really good. I'm glad you brought that up because yeah, it's probably a lot of that, a lot of heavy IAM work, as well as like some application security stuff, like monitoring stuff. But yeah, pretty dope. What's up, Sam? Thank you so much for the tier 1 sub. Would you say that managing IS is a big component of your AWS day-to-day? It's not a big component. I would say no, but I work I work on a small team that has established services, but I'm probably touching something with IAM every every 2 or 3 days, I'm probably touching something with IAM, to be honest. You know, at bigger companies, you might be touching stuff you're probably touching stuff every single day. Purple Shadow, we're definitely rating DAO today. Today is a day to rate DAO, for sure. How do we sign out of the console from the CLI? You cannot sign out of the console from this, at least I don't know of a way to sign out of the console from the CLI. I don't think you can do that. Maybe you can, and I never knew, but you cannot. You don't need to sign in and out of the CLI at all. You just close all you gotta do is just close your thing here. So don't sweat that. But yeah, if you're done, you can go ahead and sign out. It'll auto sign you out after a certain amount of time. Sometimes the cookie in here, or the session, stays around for a while, but you can just click sign out if you want to be signed out of here as well. But yeah, I tried list user and got an error. Expired token from calling list operations, including request expired. That's a good question. So a token expiration feels different than the access denied. Interesting. I'm trying to think. So we use timed session tokens for ours. It would seem weird that it would go out that fast. Try reconfiguring. Try that again. That might work for you. AWS is mostly clearance required jobs. No, not at all. I wouldn't say that at all. I would actually, because I actually like those specific IAM roles for cleared places. I actually think there's probably less of those, because generally in the cleared space, one of the regions that's available is called like GovCloud, that doesn't have all the services. And so it may not be as big of a thing since there's just not as many services, but no, I think it exists everywhere. I'm gonna be on Slack tonight. If anyone, yeah, I'm gonna try to dive into Slack a little tonight. I'm actually gonna be focusing on some Discord stuff tonight, because that's where I'm most behind on. Some of that stuff, like I said, I gave some people admin, but I don't think I told them they were mods. So a couple people asked for it, so I gave it to them. So there should be some channels and stuff getting set up in there pretty soon. Cool, dope, excellent. Thanks for another great stream, everybody. We're gonna head over to DAORite. I love DAORite. DAORite does, we talked about security tonight, so it's actually perfect. I love that Purple Shadow. He's a big security guy. I do think his stream is for mature audiences, but he's super smart. He's very passionate about the stuff that he does. Pretty dope dude. I hang out in there a lot. Sometimes you'll catch him ranting and raving about some things, kind of fun. But we will head over to DAORite tonight, so let him know we said hello. So let's see, raid DAO, is it WRITD All right. So wait, what's coming up this week? So we're back with EC2 stuff starting on Wednesday. If you're into Decoded, I forgot what Decoded is tomorrow, but we're programming tomorrow. I think we're learning about like bits and bytes and stuff tomorrow. So check that out. But excellent. Everyone have a great night. Let's head over. Let them know we said hi. We got 10 seconds on the clock. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go.